Hello and welcome to another episode of Red State Blues. I'm Ben, here with
Melanie.
Thanks for listening. I didn't really have anything planned, well, nothing especially long planned or anything this week. But one thing I just really quickly, I'll just jump right into it actually. There's a lot of things I've been listening to in podcasts lately that I think that probably are worthy of bringing up. But this one particular thing is specific to Michigan, and it has to do with redistricting. Apparently, let's see when that was. I believe it was the 21st of December. Where'd it go? There it is. Yeah. In Bridge, Michigan, they actually originally, as far as I know, reported on this, and this got on the Michigan subreddit and all this stuff like that. But they basically reported that everything is up in the air, quote unquote, now that Michigan districts must be redrawn. And apparently, what had happened was that somebody apparently sued, saying that the current districts, which have allowed the Democrats to control Michigan for the first time in about 40 years, the current House, just Michigan legislative districts, I mean, by that is what I mean, Michigan legislative House, and they apparently are saying that they are racist, is basically what it amounts to. There's a court of appeals, a federal court of appeals, that's saying that they're racist, so they're going to have to be redrawn very, very quickly. I believe February 27th is the deadline, but the Secretary of State, they're going to have to be redrawn, if needed, by somebody who they have to hire called a special master, apparently. I don't know. In my experience reading about these sorts of things, anyway, typically that ends up not benefiting the Democrats very much when that happens.
Yep.
But I don't know. I'm sure they're supposed to be impartial. However, we actually have a independent commission that's supposed to be in charge of this, and they did draw these. And I don't believe that they intended for them to be racist. So what just currently happened, that was all I believe last month, towards the end of the month. Then just the other day, Michigan redistricting panel votes to appeal court ruling invalidating the Detroit districts. So the actual panel is not happy about this. So that's kind of great. They were the ones who actually were trying to create the lines to begin with, and anyway, and a surprise meeting theory. I'll read you the Bridge, Michigan. It's bridgemi.com is where I'm getting this information. In a surprise meeting Thursday, Michigan's redistricting commission voted 8-1 to appeal a federal ruling. So they're appealing this, actually, ordering that 13 Metro Detroit State House and State Senate seats districts be redrawn. The vote, held after a little debate at 4:30 p.m. at a 4:30 p.m. meeting, first announced Thursday morning, comes a day before the commission was due back in federal court to discuss steps for revisiting Metro Detroit state legislative maps, including a timeline for redrawing the districts and the possible appointment of a court-appointed special master to assist with the process. Now, I just want to say, if you look at the 3-judge panel, you got to really get down to kind of the nitty-gritty of it, but if you look at the 3-judge panel who did this ruling, every single one of them was apparently appointed by George W. Bush. I actually did a little bit of digging, but not a ton. But I believe that they're very, very highly partisan, highly conservative picks, all from, or at least I don't know if they all were, but they have. At least I know I looked up one of them, and they had very close ties to northern Michigan, actually. So I'm sure that they are very not happy with the current situation of basically having the Democrats run things. I would say this is highly, highly contentious. Anyway, and the fact of the matter is, I don't believe that there was intentional racism maybe that went into this. I'm sure there's a lot more information here that I'm just sort of I'm briefly going over it. I'm sure there's people that will dissect everything I say and tear it apart and everything like that. But I'm just saying this, I don't believe it was made. The maps were made with an intention of being racist, and I think that was bad faith. I think that the judges are arguing that in bad faith. I think that the people suing or whatever to change it are arguing in bad faith. Mm-hmm. I think that they're going to get their way. They might not now. Now that there's another appeal, so we'll see. And then, I mean, I'm not sure what the next step would be. I mean, at this point, it might be the Supreme Court, right?
Yep, Supreme Court. I would think that, like, if this was flipped, and it was the Democrats, Democratic judges saying this, I think the Republicans just would keep appealing it until infinity and beyond, as long as they possibly could, and not change a thing. I think that that's baloney, because if you look at the independent panel, they are all of everything. Like, there's independents and Republicans and Democrats. It wasn't just
really hard
one person, and I think that they did a lot of work to try and get this to work out as evenly as possible, as fairly as possible, without drawing like weird shapes on a map like it used to be to garner more votes.
Okay, I have another section to read. In this article, it says, how big of a deal is this ruling, whether the redistricting panel can redraw maps. It depends on where you live and whether the redistricting panel can redraw maps without the appointment of a special master to oversee the process. Jeff Timmer, a political strategist who previously helped legislative Republicans draw political district maps, so called the ruling a moderate deal since the court didn't manage changes to all legislative districts. So, I mean, he was hoping that they would just all get control back for all Republicans. The ripple effect of changing districts can be minimized, he said. The estimating the theory, in theory, the court order changes in the House could be achieved by changing 20 districts instead of redoing all 110. Mm-hmm. So that'll help the Republicans get the majority they need, I'm sure.
Yep.
The ruling is a far bigger deal in Detroit, where residents of the majority black city saw representation in Lansing decline because of the maps, and that's the part where they're claiming that it's racism. Before 2022, there were 15 black lawmakers in the State House and 5 in the State Senate. With the new maps, representation fell to 14 in the House and 3 in the Senate. Now, Detroiters don't have clarity on which district they are in and who is running to represent them. So, I actually don't think that like a 15 to 14 change there is like that momentous of a change. But okay, anyway, I guess whatever they want to sue over. The ruling prohibits Michigan Secretary of State from holding elections in the districts until they are redrawn. So, and there's a presidential primary in February 27th. I just want to say this one part of the article kind of got me. The 3-judge panel, Raymond Keith Ledge, Paul Maloney, and Janet Neff, all appointees of former President George W. Bush, did not lay out an exact process for redrawing the maps, but didn't rule out the possibility of appointing a special master to assist the commission with proceedings, which I think this is like the second or third time I have said this in this podcast.
Yep.
But I guess I just want to just really make that clear that they are not they're not impartial in this. Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. Well, I just going down and try. I feel like I could go down a whole huge long rabbit hole. I did not prepare for that today at all. Maybe sometime I should actually write something up on this.
I really think it is
because you really could. Basically, one of those judges is like a constitutional originalist, mm-hmm. which means that he believes in the founders' intent at the time of writing it, and that's how the Constitution should be interpreted. Anyway, it's very interesting. But and also, I mean, really, that one of them is pretty much a member of the Federalist Society too. Yep. I mean, they're highly conservative. They really want to just take us back in time if mm-hmm. they could, to an earlier time. Anyway, so they're very, very, very much against Michigan being controlled by Democrats. Yep. I'm sure it probably makes their heads explode, and they're about as far from impartial as you possibly could be in this ruling. And that's just it's insane that it's even allowed, that they're allowed to have this much power. Mm-hmm. Anyway, Now, interestingly, I feel like if this goes to the Supreme Court, I don't believe that the Supreme Court would do the right thing necessarily. It probably wouldn't, but it might feel like a little pressure to just sort of like back off, kind of because of I think the pressure that they're kind of under in general for their other shitty rulings they've been doing lately, and how like out of touch they seem and completely insane. And I do believe that, so maybe there's a chance if it does go to, I don't know if it will go to the Supreme Court, but maybe there's a chance if it does, they'll just be like, all right, Michigan's allowed to just kind of do that without, even run its own state at least, because this racism is pretty much, this idea that it's racist is bullshit. In fact, it's one of those things where they're almost projecting. I feel like they're using laws that are kind of like meant for Alabama, where it like really is racist, and they're trying to say that we're doing that in Michigan now. And this is like an independent, like you said, Citizens Redistricting Commission that has all races, colors, creeds on it.
Yeah, all kinds.
It was really hard for them to like even iron this out, to try to have some sort of equal amount here of peoples and an equal say here. It's not even to say the Republicans couldn't win again, with it like this. It's more of an equal playing field. That's all.
It feels like the suing is like a last gasping effort of the GOP to grasp control of Michigan again.
It works a lot of the time though. The courts are where they have the power in the courts. Mm-hmm. They have the courts on, obviously, this is an example. They have the courts on their side.
As judges are not like unbiased.
Yep.
They are partisan.
Yeah. So that's just, oh my God. Anyway, I just thought that was really important. I didn't really have anything else planned today. I didn't have anything planned today at all to talk about, really. That just like kind of came up. I'm like, holy shit, that's right. They're destroying, and they're using any little thing they can find to try to destroy the Jesus God. Okay. Just so you know, that was apparently backfeeding right then. That terrifies me when you hear your own voice when you're speaking into a microphone, and then it like backfeeds, or not just backfeeds, it'll like repeat yourself to you like a second delay or something crazy like that. Anyway, I forgot. I had to stop the recording, and I started it again right there. Sorry about that. If that came off very weird. Okay, yeah, we are both still alive though, and I think Melanie, you had something else you wanted to talk about, right?
Yeah, just a couple of things that are going on. I was reading Bridges, the Michigan Bridges magazine thing, and they have an article on here about. It's called Michigan Stories to Watch For in 2024. And a couple of things slipped under my radar because we were so busy these last few months. I hadn't been paying attention. But apparently, we've talked about free school meals before on the podcast. And apparently, which I wasn't aware of, the free school meal program lapsed in Michigan, and then Michigan lawmakers authorized up to $160 million to extend the program through the current school year. And the Senate Education Committee chair, Dana Polanyi from Livonia, said she wants Michigan to make it permanent. So that would be really cool if we had a permanent free lunch program for all children in the state of Michigan. I thought it was. It lapsed, apparently. And
really?
Then they added money to it for the rest of the school year, but then after that it's like up in the air. So she wants to make it permanent. Yes.
Oh my God. Well, so basically that should be something they should be able to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
And then because of the Oxford shooting back in 2021, both the Republicans and the Democrats are looking at strengthening school safety legislation this year. So keep your eyes open for that, because I know that all parents are worried about their children, no matter what side of the aisle they are on, to keep everyone safe, even though they have different methods to do that. The other thing that's really important is they are starting to have, last year they started to have, what do they call it? Special session committee things over mental health. The lack of mental health in the state of Michigan for children. Because oftentimes if you have a child that's having a mental health issue, it's very difficult to find a child psychiatrist or an emergency placement to put them. Or if your child is literally gone crazy and is trying to kill you, there's nowhere to take them. And they tell you to go home with them. And then bad things can happen. So anyways, the state is starting to look at maybe some kind of legislation or some kind of change in the rules to help draw in more child psychiatrists and social workers, and to change the Medicaid program somehow so that they can help make it easier to find those resources. So that's awesome. I like that. I like talking about positive things a little bit sometimes.
Actually, the state's getting a lot of stuff done for once. So it's making communities more livable and stuff like that. Yeah.
And let me tell you, as a foster adoptive parent, and I'm in a lot of groups, support groups with other adoptive foster parents, and I'll tell you that there's a great need for this. And I think it got on the radar more after the pandemic, when everybody was talking about the children were depressed because they were at home and not in school and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Finally, mental health has come to the forefront, and it really needs to be addressed. It needs to be addressed just like our kids get a well child check once a year. They should have a well mental check once a year, and have enough resources, medical resources, doctors and stuff to be able to do that. I think it's very important.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'll get off my
soapbox. It's actually really important to be... I agree. I tend to probably, in the media in general, focuses too much on the negatives and not enough on the positives. I think you're right. And like, it's easy just to read the headlines and read all the awful, god-awful shit that's happening. And like, it's like a dumpster fire. You know, I just watched a video by Hank Green, a YouTube video, where it's like, he's like, oh yeah, here's the dumpster fire. Like back in 2016, they're like, 2016 was a dumpster fire. And then they're like, 2017 was a dumpster fire. Yep. 2018 was a dumpster. You know, it just kept going and going and going. And now it's like every year. It's like, then obviously 2020 dumpster fire. You know, like it's just like now every year, everybody's just like, oh, everything's fucked. You know, everything just keeps getting worse. But there's actually some progress in some places. You have to know where to look and kind of like maybe look at the silver lining in a way, right? Yeah, but things can get better, right?
Yes, and I would like to say it was regular people, regular parents, regular doctors who noticed that they were flooded and didn't have enough resources for fellow, doctors to take some of their caseload, because there's just so much need for mental health services. So we need to be reminded that we give the leadership power. Politicians do not have anything without the people. Remember that.
Because that's
if
how
your children
works,
are having problems like this, likely another family is also having problems accessing resources as well, regardless of what the insurance is.
I haven't found that. I know what you mean. Like,
we forget that. They get us all caught up in a bunch of baloney.
I know, like, you think it's really easy to feel like you're the only one. Or like you're the only group of people or only family of people that has certain problems. And even with the internet, somehow we're more isolated than ever about that. You know, and like now it's like, no. But odds are, you're right. If you're having those problems, somebody else is probably having those same exact problems.
And a lot of times we don't know that, because in the era of social media, we all are trying to make ourselves look good on camera for Facebook, and then nobody knows that other people are having those same problems.
Bad to it's it would probably be acceptable to talk about it in real life, but it's bad to post about it.
Right.
Yeah, it's bad to like post it to your public page and like have everybody read about it, because
we're all trying to market ourselves, develop an image. Some people are trying to be famous. And all those things.
Have the big smile and the nice new teeth, the new fancy America. Winner or whatever. I don't know. Winning friends and influencing people. That's it. Yep.
Right.
I was gonna say. Yeah.
And I would like to just note a little bit of traditional history here with chiefs. In the Native American groups, chiefs were given their leadership role by the people. The chiefs were often the most poorest person in the entire tribe. Why? Because they gave everything to their community. The community needed to provide back for them because they gave everything to the community, and that's what leadership is. That's what real leadership is. And if people are not doing the things that you want them to do, that you have elected them to do, or you think that something midterm needs to change, you need to let them know that you need they need to change something, or hey, there's a problem out here
Yes.
happening, like with mental services or with school safety or with any of these things.
Yeah, regardless of party affiliation.
Right, and the
Right,
way to do
yeah.
that is not to go to the school and scream at them, because they're not the ones in
no,
control of
yeah,
policy.
yeah.
You need to actually write thoughtful letters, appreciatively, nicely, professionally, to the people that you need to talk to. If that doesn't work, then there are other ways of doing that. Developing coalitions, community
Letters
coalitions.
can
and
mean a
things.
lot. I think so. I don't
Written
really-
letters
yeah.
on paper, not on
Well,
internet,
I think
even
email,
more
just
so.
an actual email
Yeah.
is considered
written.
kind of a formal
Yeah.
way now.
Yep.
I mean, it's kind of funny how that is, but now, I mean, emails are kind of the modern formal
Right.
way of writing. And,
Excuse my computer.
that threw me. I'm like, whoa.
Some kind of notification.
Yep. Yeah, no, I just was reading about, oh, jeez, I can't remember the specifics. It was in the Daily News, like, last Tuesday. Yeah, anyway, there's some guy, like, ranting and raving, and it was in a township in Ionia County. I think it was, like, Reynolds Township or something like that. And, like, it's just, like, he's ranting before this township board, and he's going to go to prison now because he didn't count. He was, like, an elector who, like, decertified some ballots and stuff like that, but he was like, that's not a good way to handle things.
No.
Man, don't like go to township meetings and scream at everybody. Don't threaten people. Don't try to intimidate people. Like, that's not any good way to handle things. Like, no one likes a bully, you know, like. But yeah, writing letters is actually a good way to handle things. Maybe attending the township meetings is a good way to handle things, right? You know, I mean, actually participating in the democracy is all of those things are good. But screaming at people and not certifying ballots or whatever is bad, especially the not certifying ballots part. But screaming in general,
Right.
So like that's yeah.
And as a people in this country, we are a democracy and have been, okay? And we have a chance now that things could change. But we got to remember that in a democracy, we all have a voice. And even though sometimes like in Michigan, we've lived under Republican control of our legislature and stuff for years. But you did not see us
all
going
our
down
lives.
there screaming at them. We would write them
Yep.
letters. We would call them and say, hey, could you do something about this?
I mean, I know
That's the way it works in a democracy.
Yep.
You do have a voice, and your voice has power. Just to remind you of that.
I think that's hard to like explain to people too. Like my entire life, this state has been controlled pretty much entirely by Republicans. Occasionally, the Democrats would take control of the governor's office. Not very often. You know, Granholm had it for 8 years, but my entire life virtually has been Republicans in the House and the legislative House and the legislative Senate, and it's just like, but I didn't just like. You do feel powerless at that for that many years. You do. You don't really in some ways, but I still kind of wrote them. You know, and I know many people that were Democrats that did write them. You know what I mean? They didn't go down though and like occupy with guns the Capitol building,
Right.
for example. Not that anybody would ever do that, of course, for any reason. But, you know, that would never happen, of course. Why would anybody go and occupy... Oh, wait.
Oh, geez, that happened.
Oh, wait. Maybe that did happen in Michigan.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, wait.
And one of the ways they
it's
get
just
them-
Jesus. Anyway, sorry.
One of the ways they get them to do that, though, is that apathy of feeling like the government isn't listening to them and making them feel like they are
Well,
powerless
this
and
is
making
like-
them apathetic. And then they think they have to do some kind of strong arm technique to get their voice heard. And that's not true. They just need to
Yes.
write the letter.
Write a letter. Well, this
You
is my
know?
point about both sides in northern Michigan and people in other parts of, you know, southern part of Michigan and wherever. They need to, like, come together and move to the center a bit.
Yep.
Like moving to the center, I think, is starting to be more how I feel in general. Like, I really, really think that extremes on either side are not the answer. We don't need more extremes. Like, we need to come to a consensus. Maybe neither side will be absolutely happy, but if we could come to so Republicans should listen to their Democratic constituents, you know what I mean, and Democrats should listen to the Republican constituents, you know what I mean. Like, they should actually listen to those letters, you know, a little bit, take them seriously to a degree, not go further out into frickin' wacky land. Yeah.
Right. Because when you get that office You're representing everyone.
Everyone, exactly. Not just the 70% or 60% that
Right.
voted for you.
So
There's
when
still, even in the most conservative, reddest districts ever, there's still like 30% Democrats.
right.
You know, like that's still a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, man, you know, like that. They might feel very underrepresented in northern Michigan.
Yep.
You know, and the same holds true in southeast Michigan. I'm sure for the whatever 30% of Republicans that are there. You know, like they of course feel highly underrepresented and very angry about it. You know, so like maybe both sides should be listening to them.
Yeah,
And
because the
each-
leadership
yeah,
needs
well,
to know, the political leadership in this country and in this state need to know that the only reason why they have bread to butter is because of the people, and both people, and that means all the people, the independents, the Republicans, the Democrats, everyone.
Hey, you know, one good thing that happened, like today, literally just today, is, or I mean yesterday, Christina Caramo, the Republican chairman of the party in Michigan, has been voted out. She is saying that that's incorrect. She is an example of an extremist, I would have to say. Very much extremist. And she believes Donald Trump won the election. She believes she's an election denier. She believes she won her election for Secretary of State, and it wasn't even close. And now she has become essentially infamous due to an episode of This American Life. That they interviewed everybody surrounding her and interviewed her. Anyway, and she's essentially become nationwide infamous now as like one of the biggest election deniers anywhere, right? And she has been in charge of the GOP. She's ran into bankruptcy,
Yep.
unable to pay their debts. They're not getting any rich donors. There is just a disaster. Like the Republicans completely depend on their rich donors. Without those,
Yep.
they just apparently basically don't even exist as a party.
Right.
Like without insane. And now, I mean, I think they're at least $500,000 in debt.
Yep.
So, just for an example, yeah. So the Republican Party in Michigan is not doing good, but this is probably one of the smartest things that they've done is to vote to get rid of her right now. So they're probably going to come back. They're probably not going to just like completely take care of everything in the state, but I'm sure they're going to get a majority at some point. Again, they always do, you know. And so like what our side isn't Democrats, liberals, I guess I should say, not even necessarily Democrats, need to learn to work with their side and vice versa. That's all. Yes.
But I think because they actually voted her out, I think that if and when the GOP comes back, it will be a more like an old type GOP person.
Well, that's what I would hope.
Which would be like a
Financially, fiscally conservative. That's fine. That's
more central.
Actually, those
centrist.
arguments appeal to many people. I'm not saying I would vote for them myself,
Right.
but I could see the appeal there at least. Yeah, like at least it's not just nonsensical, nutso shit.
Because
so, yeah.
the centrists at least believe in the idea of democracy. That's the thing.
Right.
They believe in the chairs that they are keeping because they
Yep.
believe in the democracy and the votes that got them there. That is the central thing. If you don't believe in that, I don't even know how you can run
Right,
because you don't believe in the system you're sitting in.
right,
And that if it's not that, then it's what? Authoritarianism?
right.
You just want to tell other people what they can do and not listen to anybody.
Yep.
That's not a democracy, and I
And
hope that never happens.
That time, actually, speaking of authoritarianism, we'll move on to that really quick. Rachel Maddow wrote a book called Ultra, based on a podcast she did. Or, I'm sorry, her book was called Prequel, based on a podcast she did called Ultra. And it was all about that temptation towards fascism and the possibility of fascism in the 1930s is historical. So, like, there was actually kind of a very close call with fascism back in the 1930s.
Yep.
And it is kind of a thing that's part of our history that most people don't really know about. Definitely worth a listen. I've listened to some of it. I haven't listened to all of it. I just got the audiobook, so I'm going to listen to that. Yeah, so that's I've been listening to more interviews with her, talking about it and stuff like that too, and she's been talking about how like there is that temptation in everybody really, on both sides, to like just want to shut the other side down, shut them down, and just be like they are just wrong. They should not take any part in this decision-making process. And that's how fascism happens right there, basically, because then one side is just completely in control and the other side is out. So that's not good. You can't have just that. Yeah, go ahead.
And then when you have a person or a party start going toward the authoritarian side, they'll promise things that they think that everybody wants, popular things, and say, well, if you follow us,
Oh yeah, it's popular. That's what's
listen to your gut.
That's populism.
Yeah.
Now that would be an example of that would be. I'm sure Trump would promise anybody anything.
Yeah.
I'm sure he would promise universal health care. I'm sure he'd promise legalizing pot
Yep.
federally. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I'm sure that he would do. He would say, on one side of his mouth, he would say, "I hate that. Everybody should go to prison forever for that." And then the next thing you know, he'd be like legalizing it.
Yep.
You know, like the next day, even. Like it's completely wild and crazy. You know, you'd be on a crazy wild ride. But the scary thing is you wouldn't have a voice. Oh, what I was leading to anyway with the Rachel Maddow stuff also is that the Heritage, there, if you look it up on Wikipedia, the Heritage Foundation, which is a Republican think tank, without Donald Trump, I don't even think a lot of them like Donald Trump, really. They have a plan called like Project 2025 to essentially like take control of the federal government. And this is like documented and stuff. So it's just, if you get time, just go ahead and you can Google that. But it is actually pretty terrifying. Their plan is to immediately take control of the federal government and fire thousands of federal workers who they consider to be quote unquote deep state operatives, and put their own federal workforce in, essentially completely taking control of the government. And I mean, I guess that's our step towards fascism. I mean, that's the thing that like the plans. That's terrifying, actually. But the plans that some places have to take over the government are real and legit. That's not just a conspiracy theory. They have, you know, what? Go ahead. Yep.
AP News did a story on it in August.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Yeah, I mean, there really is real plans. That's just horrifying. Actually,
Yes, it is.
We don't need that. So
It is. Because even though you think that they're going to support you, eventually they're going to come to your door and you're going to be the outsider.
Yeah.
Even if you voted in the people that took over dictatorships, thinking that you were doing the right thing because you thought you were going to go with your gut and you didn't trust the swamp and all this, and then you're going to wake up the next day and you're going to find out that you're the other person. Just like what happened in World War II. World War II was not a joke. It actually happened.
I think that memory of World War II is...
I knew this.
Fading.
I knew this.
So, like, that's the thing about
I knew
that.
this was going to happen
Fading,
as the last of them died.
That generation is dying and dead mostly.
And then you forget.
Now. And then it's kind of outside of actual memory anyway. It's like everybody should have to watch Band of Brothers every year or something.
Yep.
Just so they have a reminder of what the hell even freaking happened back then.
Yep.
But anyway, it's. But I don't have to continue about that though. But that's
The main thing that I think I want to have people understand, and just democracy isn't a bad thing. At least everybody has a voice.
Yeah.
Everybody has a voice, even if you don't
I
like.
feel like we're on the edge.
Please,
I feel
please
like
believe in the democracy.
After watching enough and reading enough lately, it feels like we are very much on the edge of, and maybe we always are, and maybe that's what it is. Like in, I don't know, like maybe like the 50s and 60s, 70s, in that time period, and 80s even, like we're kind of a enigma. Like that was like not a normal time frame. And maybe we've always been on the edge, and we were always on the edge before that, and now we're kind of going back to that. Like, we're on the edge now, and we're always going to be kind of like, you know, we have to make, every generation just kind of has to make the choice, you know? Like, there isn't, like, Walter Cronkite or whatever, you know, from the old days, just, like, telling everybody the news and being completely the objective truth, and everybody believing him. Like, that was, like, an unusual time period.
Right.
You know, and, like, that does not normally how things are. And normally there's all this temptation there.
Yep.
You know, on both sides.
Because
so
you get frustrated with the other people.
Yeah.
But you know what? Having two people disagree gets you to, if used correctly, will get you some sort of in the middle answer. Okay? If you only have one, you only have that one voice. You don't have a voice anymore. You don't have an option to vote for anything, say anything. Remember that. Democracy is good because everyone has a voice. You have a vote. That's what I want to leave everybody with.
You know what? Maybe we should actually stop there. There's something. I think we should just stop there today. This is long enough. Yeah, that's fine. I didn't really have any plans at all going into this. So look for this to let us. So that's pretty cool. Thanks for listening.
Yes.
Really, really appreciate it. If you get a chance, I gotta highly recommend a couple different things. Sam Harris has a great podcast. If you get a chance to listen to that, I highly recommend it. It's his podcast. Not like he needs any plug from me, but yeah, he's a great writer, and it really it could. I feel like I'm listening to somebody like that's using logic as their bedrock, if that makes sense. So they're looking at everything from a logical angle, at least, like a Vulcan or something, which is kind of cool, actually. I like that, So he's, anyway, I'm really digging what he's talking about lately and stuff like that. So I'm not sure. I think you might have to, like, pay to hear his You can listen to most of the podcast, though, on whatever Apple Podcasts it's called now. I was going to say iTunes, because I'm old, but it's not iTunes, so. But yeah, that one, and so he did a great interview recently with Amanda Knox, and she's very infamous, really, I suppose, infamous for in 2007 being accused of murdering her roommate. So anyway, if you give that, I would highly recommend that to anybody who'd want to give that a listen. So, and was there anything else you've listened to or read lately that you want to throw out there? I don't know.
I've listened to a lot of things on Neurodiversity lately, so
yeah.
So that's the road I'm down. I'm deep diving into my
Neurodiversity.
Yeah. So anyways.
All right. Well, with that, I guess we're gonna have to say Bama P.
Gwabamin.
Gwabamin.